Time for SNL. No Landry Locker this week. He's on vacation, so you got me. And we're going to continue our 25 questions for the 2025 season about the Houston Texans. If you missed the first SNL of the week, we went through our first 5 questions, including a conversation about the center, Cade Stover, Kaimi Fairbairn, Kamari Lassiter, and Will Anderson. Plenty to get to today. 5 questions for you. We'll get through it all. 15 more over the rest of the week. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the locker room. Landry's still putting up some great stuff. And of course, over on my channel as well. Appreciate everybody jumping in on the comments, the questions. We'll get to all of it here over the course of the program. Let's start with question number 1 for today. What will Nico Collins do if Nico Collins is healthy in 2025? That's a loaded question because Nico Collins has never been healthy in his NFL career. He's had injury affect all the seasons that he has played in the National Football League. But what can he accomplish if he is indeed a healthy player in 2025? Because to the start of the season, when he got going, he was the yards per game leader. I think Jamar Chase eventually caught up to him, and Collins, due to some games there at the end where he didn't put up massive stats, he ended up putting up a few less stats, and they weren't as gaudy as some of the early performances. But Nico had a really impressive start to the season. It was a huge bummer, and he comes out in the Buffalo game. He leaves after the 75-yard touchdown reception. Then we don't see him for over a month. At that point, the Texans missed him a bunch in that month. Probably could have come back for that Detroit game. They probably beat the Detroit Lions if Nico played, but that's a conversation for another time. But off the rip last year, 117, 135, 86, 151 in those first 4 games. He had a touchdown in 2 of those 4 games. He was on his way to having an absolutely massive year. So what can he do if he's healthy? And really, this question actually turns into, where does he rank amongst the best players in football if he's a healthy player? Because if you take Nico Collins' 83.8 yards per game and you multiply him out over 17 games, he'd have 1,400 receiving yards. That's right, 1,400 receiving yards if he stayed on his per game pace from last year. That's behind only Jamar Chase, who had 100 yards per game, and Justin Jefferson, who had 90 yards per game. So if Collins replicates that, if Nico Collins is ripping off 80 yards per game again, then he's going to be one of the 5 highest receiving totals in the National Football League when the season is all said and done. But he's got to stay healthy. He played 15 games in 2023. He got paid off of those 15 games, and then he missed 5 games in 2024 for the Houston Texans. And it's been like small things that just maybe they've been overly cautious or maybe they've lasted longer. I know there was some conversation or some rumors, some boiling about, hey, Nico Collins maybe wanted to be back, maybe didn't want to be on IR. I know there were some rumblings and some rumors about that last season, but even then, is he going to bring to the table if he's not 100% healthy? And do you risk re-injury if you're not overly cautious with Nico Collins? Because if he's healthy, there's literally no questions about what injury or what injury. There's literally no questions about what Nico Collins brings to the table. There's no questions about his talent because he's showcased here in the past 2 seasons. He's one of the best wide receivers in football when healthy. He just hasn't stayed healthy. And he typically, because it's all been strains and lower leg stuff or lower body stuff, it's just something that's going to pop up. It feels like something that's going to happen, something that's going to be there. So my question would be, what's he going to do if he is only healthy for 14, 15 games? Is he still going to be one of the absolute best wide receivers in football? I tend to lean yes. He finished with just over 1,000 receiving yards, and he missed 5 games. The only person who finished with more receiving yards that played anywhere close to the amount of games that he did was A.J. Brown. Brown played 1 more game. He finished with 70 or so more receiving yards than Nico Collins. Obviously, the touchdowns are super important for Nico as well. He only had 7 last year, but if he puts that number close to double digits, you could probably live with a moment here or there that he's not playing or he's dinged up or he leaves a game early. Ultimately, what will Nico Collins do if he's healthy? Well, He could be one of the best wide receivers in all of football, certainly one of the most productive receivers in all of football. Bubba Eats, he says 1450 and 12 touchdowns. I got a hunch if he's able to put something like that together, there'd be some conversations about offensive player of the year as well. So that's my first question of the day. What will Nico Collins do if he's healthy in 2025? Your guess is as good as mine, but my guess, it's going to be really fun to watch if Nico Collins can play 17 games in 2025. Question number 2, is it finally time for Tytus Howard? Now, this is, I mentioned this earlier. These are 25 questions about the 25 season, and these questions will change and evolve, and we'll get some answers to them in training camp, and we'll still have some of these questions after training camp. So this is a question that if I was ranking the importance of these questions, I'd put it pretty low. On the 25. Okay. And this is certainly a question that could fall off and something else replaces it. So is it finally time for Tytus Howard? And his conversation with Jonathan Alexander's conversation with Aaron Wilson 2 weeks ago was about, hey, I'm finally putting in the exact level that I need. I know I'm going to be playing guard. I'm getting my body right. I like the new system. I like my teammates. I like the opportunity that I'm getting here at right guard. This is a former first-round pick that even if you thought maybe he was a little overdrafted, that was my conversation when Howard was drafted, he showcased, especially compared to some of his peers from that class, he's got the ability to stick around in the National Football League. It's never quite lived up to that big contract. If Tytus Howard made less money, if he had, say, Derek Newton's contract from a few years ago, we would probably be a little less critical of what Tytus Howard brings to the table. When the Texans made him one of the highest paid right tackles in all of football, the expectations went up here, and Tytus Howard's never quite met them. He didn't even play tackle that season after he got the big contract. He was hurt in training camp. He came back and played left guard before he got hurt again. And then he played a little bit of right tackle and then ultimately moved over to a left guard again for the Texans. And now at his new position, it's right guard. So is it finally time? Well, with the conversation that Tytus Howard had about, hey, I'm going to get my body right, I'm putting everything in to this, he's got to know that the situation in 2025 is such that he's going to be on the Houston Texans. The contract, the adjustments they made, he's going to be on the Houston Texans. He might be the starting right guard. He might be the backup tackle, backup guard, or something like that. But it does feel to me like Tytus Howard is aware and knows if I don't get it going this year, then it's not going to be there's not going to be an opportunity for me going forward on the Houston Texans. It does feel very much like Tytus Howard's last stand to make it worth it, to make it right, to get something solid on this Houston Texans team. Because if he didn't stick at right tackle to the point where they had to play him at left guard and they felt like a rookie Blake Fisher gave them more opportunity. If he couldn't stick at right tackle, they didn't even give him the opportunity to play left guard. They just brought Laken Tomlinson in for it. He didn't get the chance to play tackle coming into this year because they drafted Ariante Ursary. They signed Cam Robinson. Like, if it doesn't stick at right guard, there's nothing left for Tytus Howard. Why would he get to stick around? Why would he continue to be on this football team if it doesn't happen for him in this upcoming season? Now, why could it happen for him? Well, he is a large individual, and the Texans seemingly have made the move towards larger offensive linemen, including larger interior offensive linemen. So that works for him. The coach knows where his weaknesses are. Cole Popovich, having been a part of the organization, knows what Tytus Howard can and can't do. So perhaps he's putting him in a position where Howard can actually succeed. And Howard knows for sure, without a shadow of the doubt, he's playing guard. That changes the way that he preps. That changes the way that he approaches the offseason, hopefully. That changes the way that he approaches playing the position in the upcoming season. So hopefully you get more production out of the player because you know he knows what position he's going to play, and they're putting him in a position where he can succeed. And there's another element to it. Kind of needs to be Tytus Howard at right guard, because if it's not Tytus Howard at right guard, if he doesn't lock down that position, if he doesn't find a way to be the starting right guard for this team, I don't know who's going to take his place. I don't know what right guard you could trust to put out there, put on the field, and go out there and block for C.J. Stroud. Right guard was a turnstile last year with Shaq Mason. If you're putting Jalen Thomas out there, if you're putting Ed Ingram out there, is it going to be a turnstile? That's kind of the conversation around, hey, Howard's maybe starting the race a little bit ahead of everybody because of the contract and the familiarity with the team. If he can stay in front, that's good, because I don't love the opportunities and the options behind Tytus Howard. Is it finally time for Tytus Howard? I certainly hope so. The Texans certainly hope so as well. So, appreciate everybody being here on a Tuesday. Hope you had a great start to your week. Hope the week is not beating you down. If you got vacation on the horizon, you're almost there, like Landry Locker, who's on vacation this week. HDAV Traveler with the Super Chat. Afternoon, Cody and friends. Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate you for the consistent support of the SNL channel, the comments, the questions, and everything in between. Appreciate you. So, conversation about Nico Collins. What can he do if he's healthy? Is it finally time for Tytus Howard? That was question number 2. 3 more questions coming your way. As Panda notes, hit that like button. It's a little thumbs up below. I wonder how much money she has left in her bank account after the Thunder won. I'm sure that she purchased quite a few championship items. Good to see you in there. Good to see Patrick in there. Christopher, Bubba, JB Allen, the Annihilator. Appreciate y'all for jumping in to the chat. And as Christopher notes, ready for some football, man. Yeah, look, it's the middle of summer. It's that random day where it's like been hot. It might rain. It might not rain. You're just kind of dragging. It's like, I kind of wish a football game was coming up here pretty soon. So, be good. Houstoners 420 asked me a question, and then we'll get to the rest of the football questions. Do you like the Durant trade? I love the Durant trade. Durant's still an elite player. You don't play him throughout the course of the season. Well, that's why you have a deep bench to take some of the minutes from him as you kind of get him ready and have him going 100% for the NBA playoffs. And you got a shot maker, a guy with experience in the playoffs to go along with your growing young core. 2 thumbs up for me. I wasn't a Jalen Green fan. Don't believe in him. Don't believe that the Rockets lost anything drastic by trading him. Question number 3. Is there enough at defensive tackle? And I may be asking this question in training camp, after training camp, in the regular season as well. There's just not a notable name or a name that you would get super excited about at defensive tackle. And that's okay. You can't have stars at every level. But I did think at that position, and certainly with the players that they had in the building that had departed the building via free agency or were supposed to be free agents, I did think and wonder if the Texans were going to add something significant to the defensive tackle room. It was a very, very deep defensive tackle class. They ultimately didn't opt for a defensive tackle until late in the draft. They drafted a player who didn't attend the NFL scouting combine, which typically doesn't bode well for the player's chances to stick in the National Football League, though Hamilton had a couple of nice performances at his pro day that would have been good at the combine. But they don't have a standout player, a solid veteran. They don't have any of that at the defensive tackle spot. These are the defensive tackles that they've got. They've got Mario Edwards Jr. They brought back Sheldon Rankins. They brought back Foley Fatukasi. Tim Settle's on the final year of his deal. They brought back Kurt Heinisch. Tommy Togiai's on the final year of his deal. And Keontae Hamilton and Junior Tafuna are rookies. Tafuna, an undrafted free agent. I like him a lot. He was really good at the Senior Bowl. And then Keontae Hamilton, a late-round draft pick. These are the guys at defensive tackle. Now, if you told me, and I did a video on this the other day on my channel, if you told me that Mario Edwards is going to be Mario Edwards from last year, right before the suspension, I'm in. Like, I get it. I understand how that guy is a guy that could really affect opposing teams and could be a guy that you could rely on along the defensive line. I understand that. But Sheldon Rankins, he was fine a couple of years ago. He may just be fine again. Foley Fatukasi had trouble staying healthy. The injuries kind of hurt his performance early in the year and throughout the year. He had a really nice game against the Chargers late, so that was a big positive for him. Settle started hot, then we didn't hear from him. Heinisch was a healthy scratch in favor of Togiai down the stretch. Like, there's a lot of questions with these defensive tackles. I don't know exactly what to make of what they bring to the table at defensive tackle. I will say this. This feels like the type of position that if we were sitting here in the middle of October and we were trying to figure out, hey, the Texans, they don't really have as much juice at certain spots as we thought, what position could they go trade for somebody? And my first thought would be defensive tackle. They've got all those extra picks in the 2026 NFL draft. If they wanted to go find an interior defensive lineman that was an interior defensive lineman of note, then that's certainly something they could do in the course of the season if these names that we see here on the screen don't bear it out and don't find their way into a level of confidence for DeMeco Ryans at the defensive tackle spot. If I was guessing right now, I'd say 5 guys make it. I'd go Edwards, Rankin, Settle, Togiai, and Tafuna. If I was going 5 guys, defensive tackle, Edwards, Rankin, Settle, Togiai, and Tafuna. I'd say Fatukasi, if he's banged up in training camp, he gets the Noah Brown treatment. We like you, we know you, but you're not healthy enough. See you later. Kurt Heinisch was a healthy scratch for Togiai last year. Then Keontae Hamilton. I actually like Tafuna more than Hamilton. And I think most draft prognosticators do as well. So that'd be my thought at defensive tackle, but you could also add somebody at defensive tackle. Now, I'm not talking about, Dexter Lawrence, but if somebody off of another team, was doing really well in the course of the season and maybe had an expiring contract or had a mid-level contract, the Texans wanted to send one of those extra picks, they certainly could do that. So that's what I'm looking at from an interior defensive line standpoint. And as Patrick notes, the strength of the defensive tackles is DeMeco Ryans. You're probably right about that. It's just the trust that the other, 9 guys on the field are going to make those guys right, and that DeMeco Ryans can get what they need out of those players. J.B. Allen, the Annihilator. There is not enough at defensive tackle. That's why I keep saying we should have drafted a DT with one of our first 3 picks. Yeah, but I like what they did with the first 3-4 picks. If you told me they drafted a defensive tackle instead of Jalen Smith, I'm going to run my mouth here before I remember exactly who was available. If you told me they drafted a defensive tackle in the second pick of the 3rd round instead of Jalen Smith, I probably would have been okay with that. Yeah, like Ty Robinson from Nebraska, if they drafted him or CJ West instead of Jalen Smith, Robinson went to the Eagles, and then CJ West went to the 49ers. If they drafted those guys instead of Jalen Smith, I'd have been fine with it. Gamer G Texans fan. Hey, if Tim Settle has a breakout year, that'd be great. It'd be great for Tim Settle because that means he's going to get some money. Tim Settle has a nice year as a breakout year. Either the Texans keep him and give him a nice little contract extension, or he hits free agency. And defensive tackles, sometimes you just get a couple extra bucks of cheddar in your bank account because you're a big fella. They just don't make defensive tackles like they used to. J.B. Allen, after saying he's not got enough there at defensive tackle, he says he is a Foley fan. There is a lot of injury concern on that interior defensive line. I mean, Mario Edwards is banged up a little bit. Sheldon Rankins had an injury last year that kept him out for a lot of years. Foley Fatukasi was hurt. Kurt Heinisch was hurt. He started the year on designated to return injury reserve. Settle didn't get banged up. Togiai was a midseason addition. But yeah, there's a lot of injury history there. So J.B. Allen, the Annihilator. How about looking at that defensive tackle for the Raiders, Christian Wilkins? Yeah, so the tough part about Wilkins is he's one of the highest paid defensive tackles in all of football. So that's the tough part about that is he's super expensive, and he's still hurt, actually. He's actually back in a walking boot. I saw the Raiders folks talking about that today. Christian Wilkins is back in a walking boot, and so he's actually hurt right now. So big money with the hurt. I don't know if that works, but if you added somebody like Christian Wilkins is, you added somebody at his level. I mean, you're talking about one of the nastiest defenses around. Want to just woo. Who are some of the guys we could trade for? I mean, just think about it's tough because some of these teams would need to be bad, and then the Texans would have to go and find that guy. And I haven't done a ton of looking at defensive tackles that are available, but any guy that signed a 1-year deal this year, he'd be in the conversation, or any guy that's got a contract that's coming up. Just so you grab the guy and his contract expires, you have him for a couple of games. You don't have to spend that much on him. I can get you a list a little bit later. But yeah, so do you have enough of defensive tackle? It'll be tough to answer that one. This is a good one. I like this one. This is a fun one. Will Christian Kirk turn back the clock? Will Christian Kirk turn back the clock? Christian Kirk, of course, was a standout wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. He hit free agency, and then he was a big investment by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they had a couple of years of injured Christian Kirk, and they decided to move on from Christian Kirk. Everything I've heard about Kirk was that he is a good dude. He is a consummate professional. He's the type of guy that talks after every loss, regardless of if he did good or he did bad. But can he turn back the clock? Because for the past 2 seasons in Jacksonville, he's had 1,100 total yards. His first season in Jacksonville, he had 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. So a few years into Jacksonville's big investment in him, they move on from him. The Texans trade for him. They get him without him hitting the open market. So 1,100 yards his first year and 8 touchdowns, 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns in the 2 years since. Now, Jacksonville, bit of a mess, okay? That was not a organization that allowed players to flourish, that allowed players to have a lot of success. The Houston Texans, well, they haven't always propped up that second wide receiver. The best second wide receiver in Texans history is Will Fuller. 5 times he was the second leading receiver for the Houston Texans. Those were his 5 years with the team. He moved on. Didn't play football much longer after that. By the way, the search for Will Fuller is on. I'll give you updates when I have updates. But if Christian Kirk can turn back the clock and Christian Kirk can be some semblance of the super successful player he was, and then he grew into in Arizona, and he was that first year in Jacksonville, the Texans are going to be in excellent shape. He turns 29 years old this year, and it's not like Christian Kirk has had some long-standing knee injury that has caused him to miss all this time. He's had 2 freak injuries, 2 different separate freak injuries that have cost him time with the Jaguars the past 2 years. So he hasn't been available. He hasn't been there. And when he has been, the Jaguars have kind of stunk. So if he's healthy, he should be productive, because in his career, he's pretty much always been a productive football player when he's healthy. From his time in Arizona to the first year in Jacksonville when he was healthy, he was a productive player. And even his injured year in Jacksonville in 2023, he still had 787 yards in 12 games, 13.8 yards per reception, which was his career high at that point. So we're not that far removed from this guy having career high numbers. And, oh, by the way, he's going to play in the slot in an offense that we believe is going to prop up the slot wide receiver, going to use the slot wide receiver, and he has the skills to succeed as a slot wide receiver because he's played at that position. It's worth noting, Bobby Slowick kind of tried to shoehorn Stephon Diggs into that slot wide receiver spot, and it worked for a good portion of the season. But this is a natural slot. This is a player that can play the slot, knows what it takes to succeed, knows what they can do to go in there and help a quarterback who's got a struggling offensive line. And you've got an offensive coordinator that has come from offenses that have propped up a slot wide receiver or 2 in their time. You think about New England with obviously what they did with Welker, Edelman, and Danny Amendola. You think about what they did in L.A. with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. Where's Nick Caley been? New England, L.A. You see where all of this comes to be. Nick Caley has coached under coaches that take care of the slot wide receiver, that focus on the slot wide receiver. Christian Kirk, got to be the slot wide receiver. And I like the chances that Christian Kirk has a big season. In fact, I believe there's a chance Christian Kirk could have the most receiving yards ever by a second wide receiver in Texans history. A couple of times there was a tight end as the number 2 receiver. So a couple of your comments. We'll get to the 5th question here in just a moment. Team player says, I can see Kirk getting over 1,000. If he and Nico Collins combined for over 1,000 yards, that'd be the first time in team history that the Houston Texans have been able to have 2,000-yard receivers in the same season. Danny asks about Justin Watson, another veteran. Do we think Justin Watson is going to get some good value, or was it just extra wide receiver just in case? Watson feels to me like a luxury veteran depth piece at this point because they got lucky in the draft. Watson felt like he might have been more important if the draft had kind of gone a different way. Say they had an offensive lineman that they really liked at the first part or in the first round that they would have drafted, and then maybe they didn't get Higgins. So Watson seemed like a backup plan if the wide receivers don't go their way in the draft. Ultimately, the wide receivers went their way. So it pushes down his necessity. But as a 5th wide receiver, he could be one of the better 5th wide receivers in all of football. Brandon notes Kirk will be getting better passes than he did from Trevor Lawrence. Danny's got a lot of faith in him. JB Allen, the annihilator. I believe if Kirk isn't the number 1 wide receiver, here we go. He will flourish, and he is. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. And he isn't a number 1 here, so I expect Kirk to eat when having a slot cornerback covering back 3. I thought you were saying he was going to be the number 1. Sorry, JB. Yeah, look, he's not a number 1. That's what Jacksonville brought him in to be. He wasn't. He's going to serve the Texans really well as that second option, as that slot wide receiver. I tend to agree with you. No love for Kevin Walters. The irony of you throwing an S on the end of Kevin Walters' name when I said, we'll call. Look, Kevin Walter, he has the second most number 2 receiving yard leading seasons in Texans history, but Fuller had 5 for 5 straight seasons. And it's just Kevin Walter, no S. But Walter's a legend in this organization. Caught those important touchdowns against Cincinnati. So, yes, legendary moments he's a part of. I wouldn't call him a legend. He's got legendary moments. They should put plays in the team's Ring of Honor. Not on up there, but should memorialize huge plays. Kevin Walter would be a part of some of those. Kirk being just above average would be a big upgrade. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I don't know that they got more than average slot play from their slot receivers last year. Certainly when you put the totality of the season, they didn't. Stephon Diggs had some really nice moments, but a guy with more slot experience could be an intriguing player. Danny asks, what kind of offense can you expect from Nick Caley? He's going to be run first, lots of over the middle stuff. I have no idea. I would tell you you're going to see motion before and at the snap. They're going to want to run the football. I just feel like what they were successful doing in New England and the focus and the importance of rushing the football back in New England is really important. So I think they're going to do that a lot. That comes from the New England. Sean McVay likes to run the football too. He ran the football a lot last season and the couple seasons that Caley was there. So running the football is going to be a big emphasis. They're going to need Joe Mixon healthy to do that. They're going to need the offensive line to move some earth to get that done. But I think you're going to be run first and then maximize your talents. We'll get Nico Collins over the middle, get Christian Kirk winning quick, get Jaden Higgins some mismatches and maximize what those guys do well. If Kirk doesn't get hurt, doesn't have a good comeback season, the number 2 slot will be chomping at the bit. Yeah. Jalen Noel dropping down Jaden Higgins in there sometimes. Man, could be just like that. Yeah. You'll have some contenders if Kirk's not getting it done. That's for sure. It's worth noting Kirk only on a 1-year deal. So big year for him. Got to go in there and show out, and maybe you get the one more bite at the apple in free agency. You need a damn it, Bobby button. That's Landry's thing. He's got the damn it, Bobby. He needs the button. He can't do a Hank Hill. Damn it, Bobby. I can't do it as well either. I'm pumped for the for the King of the Hill revival coming our way in August. We'll get some good TV this summer. All right. The Bears coming out this week. It's not TV, but the F1 movie looks great. If you're a T-Mobile customer, you get a $5 ticket to go see the F1 movie, which is cool. I kind of want to see the Jurassic Park movie. And then, man, there's always some good stuff. I mean, if you're a Gilded Age fan, it's back. My mom is pumped about that. Not my thing, but Sunday night on HBO, it's usually a pretty good show. Engineer with a comment here. Stroud said something interesting during the Fanatics event. We play in a shell league. Defenses want you to extend plays and leave the pockets to dump the ball off quickly. That's good for Kirk. The slot receivers are super important in the National Football League right now because you are the way defenses play you. They do not want you to hit big plays. They do not want to give up big plays. Defenses are scared to death to give up big plays. So they play a lot of what C.J. Stroud saw last year, which is trying to prevent big plays, and they want you to take what is there. And Stroud said time and time again last year, I'm just going to take what the defense gives me. And then he didn't do that. A lot of times because guys didn't get open, but even when there were open opportunities, he didn't always do that. I think that's one of those things. See it, throw it. That's something that I believe Nick Caley's going to instill in C.J. Stroud. The Tank Dell catch against the Buccaneers could be a play that's in the Texans Ring of Honor. I like that. It's good. It's good. No Landry today. Just joined in. Correct, Sumo. Danny says, hate to say it, but I feel more comfortable when Hutch is in the game opposed to Mechie. The fact that either of them would be in the game is crazy when you have Higgins and Noel and Christian Kirk and Justin Watson. I would tell you Hutchinson and Mechie are below all those guys for me. Below all those guys. Trey of Texas with an intriguing point. I know this time of year, Texans wide receiver room was considered one of the best, but I actually have way more excitement for the new wide receiver room this year. You know, I may need to do a video on this. I'm writing that down. I don't agree with you, but there's unknown, like there's good unknown to this wide receiver room because you don't know what Higgins and Noel are. You don't exactly know what Kirk's going to bring, and you don't know what the offense is. So, like, it's a good unknown because answering the questions, is Higgins good? Is he bad? Is Noel good? Is he bad? Is Kirk got something left? Does he not? What type of offense? Like, that's all going to be fun as you sort of experience it. I don't know if my excitement level reaches. I mean, I was looking up when was the last time teams had 3,000-yard receivers last year. I'm not doing that with this team. I'm praying somebody gets to 1,000 besides Nico. So I'm not quite doing that with this team. It's different. It's not this. Comparing them would be very unfair to both years. But it's different, and I can't tell you what to be excited about. But for me, I don't quite reach that level. I don't think. Yeah, Pitt in the F1 movie just looks incredible. I mean. Going to be Happy Gilmore 2 is going to be great. Yeah. That's a good point too. Where's Cliff? Is Cliff in here? Cliff always bitches we only talk about food. We're talking about movies today, Cliff. Rich Boy Jay, how concerned are you about Joe Mixon? Like today, like his foot injury that kept him out of OTA's minicamp being an issue in 2025, low concern. Am I worried about the running backs if they don't have Joe Mixon? Yeah. Very worried. Very worried. So concern about Mixon now, low. And I wonder if the running backs that they do have are there to take some of the load off Mixon in training camp. So you have him ready to hit the road running. He's got to get in there and practice in training camp, though. He's got to get in there and practice because he's got to learn the new offense, too, and got to get used to the new offense as well. Rich Boy, appreciate you for the super chat. Still have one more couple of recommendations for the Texans plays to add to the Ring of Honor. Billy Miller opening franchise TD and the J.J. Watt pick six. Absolutely. Both of those. For sure, Hugh. For sure. Do you expect Collins, Higgins, and Kirk to be the three receivers on the field most of the time? Yes. Right now, I would tell you that, yes. Nico outside, Jaden outside, and Kirk on the inside. I would tell you that it's not just like Higgins, no questions. Like they should have some guys in there taking stuff away from Higgins until he locks it down. But yeah, I would think those are the three guys. Engineer more excited for this year than last year. I mean, you guys are selling it. I like it. I like it. Oh, yeah, the new Superman movie, too. I'm kind of hesitant. I don't love Superman, so I'm kind of hesitant. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Could you see Jalen Knoll, rookie wide receiver out of Iowa State, getting ahead of Christian Kirk? Whenever I see Knoll plays, looks great talent. Think he can push him by the end of the season. I would tell you they're going to have a hard time keeping Knoll off the field by the end of the year in a good scenario. So could I see him pushing him? Yes. Taking his place? I'd say unlikely. Certainly possible, but unlikely. I got one more question for you guys, and then I'll answer some more of your questions here. Question number 5. 5 questions, 5 each day this week. 25 questions for the 25 season. Will C.J. Gardner-Johnson bring more than experience? We hear all this conversation about where C.J. Gardner was, what he did, what he learned in Philadelphia. Can he bring that to the Houston Texans? Is he going to bring it more than just being a voice, being a guy that tells you this is how we did it, this is how we should do it? Is he going to bring more than that to the equation in 2025? And I ask that because last year he was really good at safety. He was one of the more reliable safeties around the National Football League. Okay? He had 6 interceptions, which was 3rd amongst safeties. He had 6 pass breakups, which was 5th amongst safeties. He ranked overall in his overall Pro Football Focus rating 22nd amongst safeties. Think about how many play, 64 at least, because every team plays 2. And then his coverage grade at safety was 10th best on Pro Football Focus among safeties. Like he was a really productive player. And I know we talk a lot about, okay, well, he was in Philadelphia, he won a Super Bowl, and he talks about it himself. I won a Super Bowl, I want to bring that mentality. He's got to bring it more than just the experience. He's got to go out there and play well. This is a guy they brought in to replace Jimmy Ward. This is a guy they brought in to start next to Kalen Bullock. In addition to his mentality, he's a really good football player. So I know we talk about what's he going to bring, the mood fit, the energy fit, between the ears, all that. He was a really good football player last year. He's got to be that football player again. And it's worth noting the questions about that come from the fact that the Super Bowl champions, if they didn't find a trade partner, they would have just cut him. They would have just got rid of him. And he was a good piece of their defense. So there's a little bit of a question about, can he replicate that? Can he keep that going? He's still a young player. He's been around the NFL for a few seasons now. He's got to be a good, productive safety to bring what everybody hopes and expects he brings to the table, because you can talk all you want, but if you don't get it on the field, what you say really doesn't matter. So will C.J. Gardner-Johnson bring more than experience? I tend to think so, because a guy that seems that motivated, and oh, by the way, probably would love to have some guaranteed money added to that contract at some point, you're going to get a pretty good season out of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So that was my 5th question. I want to make sure I get that in for people that were clocking the 5 questions for today. We started with Nico Collins and his health. Is it time for Tytus Howard? Is there enough at defensive tackle? Will Christian Kirk bounce back? And will C.J. Gardner-Johnson bring more than experience? My allergies are destroying me today. I don't know why they are bothering me. Give me a moment. All right, let's answer some questions, and then we will wrap up SNL for the day. I got a video over on the Cody Stutes channel if you'd like to check that out. Top 4 Texans defenders. Okay, and we'll go through my list from 2024, see how wrong I was, and then we'll see what I think about 2025. Let's get some of your questions in here. Rich Boy, who's more likely to have a better season, Chubb or Pierce? Chubb, because he's actually going to be on a team. I don't know about Damian Pierce. 1984 Cade, what do you think about Mechie's chances to have a breakout year? 0. He's looked quick in drills, albeit not much footage. Can Kaylee get the most out of him? No, I don't believe in John Mechie. I would not be holding my breath for a breakout year. Anything you get from him is bonus. I don't believe there's any chance he gets higher than the 6th wide receiver spot on the depth chart. So not a lot of belief over here. JB asks, if Chubb is 80% what he was, then I have 0 worries about mixing. Chubb guarantees you a first down after 2 carries. Yeah, 80% of Chubb, 70% of Chubb, you could probably be pretty comfortable with him as the backup. So be intriguing to see. Cody, what do you think of Tank with no boot this weekend? I didn't see that, but no boot for Tank Dell. Look, he's been out of the boot and been around, walking around a little bit. It's because he's so far away from football and participating. And I know he said it's going to be sooner than you think. If he's part of your plans in 2025, I think you're planning to be disappointed. A lot of excitement for this year's wide receiver room versus last year. We got another movie, Tron Ares. That's when Tron comes into the real world, right? I liked the last Tron. Is this one connected to the other ones? Or is it just like, hey, take the universe and do something? I used to play the Tron game back in the arcade game back in the day. Hard, very hard. Only thing I was good at was the motorcycles. How much trust do you have in the O-line? What's the expectation? Don't suck. The expectations don't suck. You sucked last year, don't suck this year. How much trust do you have? I'd say you should have 0 trust. Until they go out there and earn the trust, you should have 0 trust in the offensive line. Shouldn't trust them at all. They've done nothing to create any level of trust in what they've done on the offensive line. So the expectations don't suck. Oh, so here we go. We got a lot of folks saying, hey, James Gunn, the new Superman director. James Gunn did well with Guardians of the Galaxy. Now all of his DC. Now he has his hands all over DC. Yeah. I liked his was it Creature Commandos was pretty good. He's doing some TV shows and stuff. And then JB says, I have 0 trust in James Gunn. Peacemaker was a bunch of fart and butt jokes. I liked Peacemaker. That's coming out this year too. Peacemaker 2. I liked Peacemaker. That was high-class comedy to me. Is Noel the fastest guy on the team right now? I think so. I'm trying to think who'd be closest to him. I think Noel's the fastest player on the team. Team player says CJGJ can be a Pro Bowler in this defense. You're probably not wrong about that, especially with the defensive line getting things, making things easier, forcing stuff to the safeties because the cornerback play is good. There's certainly a chance for that. Yeah, I believe you mean Andre. Andrew kicking ass back there. Andre, yeah, that'd be a play. Cortland Finnegan getting beat up would be a Ring of Honor play. It's for sure. CJGJ teams in the past, conference championships or Super Bowl. I mean, he's a baller, man. He's a baller. He was very good last year, but it just worries me the Eagles were content to maybe just let him go. Hey, sometimes you need a locker room nutcase. He's probably not wrong about that. I think CJGJ will help bring along Bullock. He's also a ball hawk, so it's the shoot style we have. Yeah, taking chances? Certainly. Cody, have you heard anything about Daniel Jackson, the wide receiver out of Minnesota? He's an insane highlight reel in college and looks like an awesome route runner. I believe Daniel Jackson will be on the practice squad unless he just is awesome in training camp and is the final wide receiver. But he's had a couple of really nice plays, and then a couple of plays over the middle as well. He's had a couple of nice plays in, OTAs and minicamp. And he'll be a player that I spend a little extra time watching there in training camp. I liked what I saw from Daniel Jackson. Over under 45 sacks given up this year. Okay, that's a good. Is that the number I would set if I was Vegas? Is that the number I would set if I was Vegas? They gave up 54 last year. So could they get 10 sacks better? I'll go under just because I think CJ is going to get rid of the ball fast. I'll go under. Not way under, though. I got the hiccups now. Oh, boy. 45 is good enough for 13th in the league last year. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles gave up, was 45. So if they went under that, they'd be squarely in the average of an offensive line. Stroud over under 4,000 yards. Oh, boy. Over under 4,000 yards. Excuse me. Bear with me as I fight through the hiccups here. I'm going to say over. That puts him in the top 5, top 6. I'm going to say under, like 38. 38, because they're going to get ahead and they're going to run the football. You're going to get ahead and run the football. Patrick. Come on now. Now, the first-time signal caller, who's to say it will be different than Bobby Slowick? Well, look, if you're concerned as first-time signal caller, I certainly understand that. But Nick Caley has a much more diverse resume and history than Bobby Slowick. Bobby Slowick pretty much coached under one coach, under one offense, under one style in his coaching career. Nick Caley coached under a bunch of different offenses, coached under the Josh McDaniels offense in New England, coached under Sean McVay in L.A. Nick Caley is far better from a resume standpoint than Bobby Slowick up to this point. And who's to say he's going to be better? Nobody knows. I believe in the history and I believe in the resume more than I did Bobby Slowick's. Do you think they'll have Noel return kicks or punts, give him more opportunities to get his hands on the ball? You might have a question from later in the week. Mm-hmm. When will we play a competitive game against the Baltimore Ravens? Hopefully this year. Shit. Ravens been kicking their teeth in. Let's see. That question stressed Cody out. Gave him the hiccups. The Fanatics interview, it's on my to-do list, engineer, from C.J. Stroud. He was up there with, Peyton and Eli and Caleb Williams and Bryce Young. Yeah, they definitely knew what he liked to do and tried to take that away last year, and he nor Bobby could adjust to it. So, yeah, he's going to have to change some things up. All right. Nick, you missed plenty. Hit the rewind button and check it out. Appreciate everybody for watching today. We'll have 5 more questions for you Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Got videos on the Cody Stoots channel. Landry's got videos for you on his channel as well. It is the summertime. Might have to have a Cody Stoots live stream and talk movies and TV shows. Might throw that on the back end of a Stoots live stream later this week. So be on the lookout for that. Movies, TV shows I'm excited to watch. I might just stream up to the start of when the Bear comes out tomorrow. Comes out in the middle of the day, right? Just come out tonight at midnight. I might be staying up late. Who knows? Who knows? Going to have some stuff on Houston football for you this week as well. Going to do some writing there. So if you're not subscribed, it is free to subscribe. The newsletter, so check that out. Landry would tell you that doesn't matter if you hate the movies that I watch or you love the movies that I watch. We're all in this together. And my catchphrase is, I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate you for watching the live stream. Check out the locker room. Check out Cody Suits channel. Appreciate the support here on the channel. And have a fantastic rest of your day. See you again tomorrow, live 4 o'clock.